Welcome back to video 2 in the Pizza Party Calculator app tutorial using Thunkable. We are ready to figure out what goes on screen 2, so you can go ahead and navigate there by using this drop down. Right now our screen 2 is blank, but let's take a look at what we want it to be on screen 2. We have 3 questions we are asking our user. How many people will eat 1 slice of pizza at your pizza party? How many will eat 2? And how many will eat 3? So first we need to make those questions so that we're going to have 3 different labels. So let's go back to Thunkable and drag a label over. And if you remember from the last video, you changed the text by going here. How many people will eat 1 slice of pizza at your party? Question mark. Okay, you'll notice that it goes a little bit beyond the screen here, and it might go even further beyond depending on how many words you type in here. That's okay. It won't look correct here in the browser window, but when you test your app, you will see that the text here will wrap and it won't go beyond the edge of the screen. So you can just ignore that for now. I'm going to drag over a second label because we're actually asking these 3 questions. So how many people will eat 1 slice of pizza at your party? How many people will eat 2 slices? And the third one will be how many people will eat 3 slices? Be thinking about the fractions that these represent as well, because we're not actually going to be doing anything with the numbers 1, 2, or 3. We're going to be converting those into fractions and then into decimals. We'll talk about that in a minute. How many people will eat 3 slices? Okay, now we need a place for people to input their answer. So over here in the user interface section, there is a text box. And what that means is this is where the user can type some text in. Notice when I'm dragging my text box over, I am making sure that I look at where that blue line is. And that blue line is where the text box is going to go. So go ahead and drag over all 3 text boxes. Again, you can change the formatting of these questions and even the text box if you would like. For now, I'm just going to leave everything as is so I can keep explaining these things to you. I'm going to click on my first text box so I can see that it's selected over here in my component section. I have this option here for a hint. So I'm actually going to delete what it says. What that means is on the app, there will be a light gray text and it just says hint for text box 1 as a default. I'm going to change that and just type in number in parentheses so that our users know that they need to type a number in there. All right, I'm going to do that for all 3 of the text boxes, number, and the third one is number as well. Okay, now we need to have a button here that calculates the math that we're about to talk about. So let's throw a button here at the bottom. And we're going to call this calculate. Okay, and then I'm going to put a label here, just like I have in my example. You will need to buy how many pizzas, and that question mark is something that where the answer will go. So let's go back and just say pizzas needed might be the fastest way to do this. So I'm going to drag a 4th label over. I'm going to replace the text and just say number of pizzas needed. Okay, that's label 4. Label 5 is really important. We're going to drag it over. It is our answer. So it's going to start as a question mark. I'm just going to replace it with a question mark. And I'm also going to make it bigger and bold so that it's obvious that that's where the answer is going to go. So number of pizzas needed is question mark. And we had one more thing we needed here is just a next button to get to the next screen. And we'll talk about that later, but let's go ahead and put the button there. We'll replace the text on the button to say next. Okay, let's talk about some of the math that we need in order to get this question mark to turn into the answer. Now, we are going to be multiplying a fraction. So how many people will eat 1 slice of pizza? Well, that fraction is 1/8. So we would take the answer here and multiply it by 1/8. Then we would add that to the answer for this. So how many people will eat 2 slices? Well, whatever they type in here will get multiplied by 2/8. The unfortunate part about Thunkable is that we can't type in fractions. So we need a conversion chart to decimals. So over here you can see that if you're talking about 1/8 of a pizza, that is the same as 0.125, 0.125 as a decimal. So you can use this visual to kind of help if you'd like. You can see that here, let's do the example 4/8 because that's a nice easy one. If you have 4/8, 1, 2, 3, 4/8, then that is the same as 0.5 of a decimal. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So we're going to use this conversion chart to help us make the fractions be the same as the decimal. So let's go back into Thunkable and take a look at how we get this math in here. We're gonna need to do some coding. So let's go into blocks. The very first thing we need to set is a global variable, and our answer is going to be the variable. So to set a variable, you click on the orange section here and say initialize global, and we're going to change name to answer. And this means that at the beginning of this page, the answer is going to be 0. And let's grab a 0 from the math block right here. That just means that when we start, that question mark is equal to 0 because nobody has typed anything in yet. Now, we are going to, let's see, button 1. Let's just double check and make sure button 1 is the button that we want. I'm going back into the designer tab. This button right here is button 1. When this is clicked, we want to add these 3 answers together. So let's go back into blocks and make sure that button 1 is there. And when that button is clicked, so let's go button 1. When button 1 is clicked, we want to set the variable. Okay, we're going to click set. And the variable that we're talking about is answer. Okay, set global answer to, now we have to do some math. So we're adding 3 different things together. Let's start with that. So we'll go into math and click on the addition block, and we will thunk it right there. Now we actually want to add 3 things together because we have 3 different answers or options that our user will type in, right? So on our screen we have this plus this plus this, and inside here is a multiplication question. So let's get 3 spots where we can put our multiplication statements in. So back in blocks, we're going to add a third number. So you just pick up the number and drag it underneath here, and that will give you a third place to add things together. All right, what I want you to do now is think about what is going to go inside here. So I want you to pause the video and we'll come back and talk about what goes in the addition statement there. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have text box text from the first text box. So this would be the answer that they typed into the first text box. And I have that right here. Text box text. We want that to be multiplied by, the first one was 1 slice, so 1/8 equals 0.125. So we want to multiply it by 0.125. So let's grab a multiplication block out of math and let's do this. We're going to drag it right in here. So we want to multiply the contents of the first text box times, and let's get a number in here, and we can change the number. It's not going to be 0. We're going to make it the decimal that we need. So for 1/8, it is 0.125. All right, so this means that whatever's in that first text box, whatever they type in, that's the number of people that are going to eat 1 slice, multiplied by 1/8, otherwise known as 0.125. Now you can right click on this to duplicate, and we're going to finish the video out by changing the contents of these to be what we need for text box 2 and text box 3. We just need to change the decimals here to be for 2/8, that is the same as 0.25. And for 3 slices or 3/8, that will be 0.375. And in the next video, we'll talk about testing our app and finishing up the coding on screen 2.